Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And with the greatest of respect to Mr. Massey and Monsieur Villemur, I see no reason why between now and when the House goes back that this committee can allocate 2 meetings, 4 hours. I don't think that's much to ask. It seems like some members would prefer to take the vacation off or to prefer to be in their ridings. Well, I'd like to be in my riding as well. But this committee has important work to do in the face of a very damning report from the Ethics Commissioner with respect to the conduct of the former chair of Sustainable Development Technology Canada, better known as the Liberals' billion-dollar green slush fund. I just want to say, before I get into why its time is of the essence, that I am astounded by the remarks of my friend Mr. Badaway in terms of his characterization that Conservatives are playing politics and that this is about political games. And he said that Conservatives have been on some sort of diatribe, those were his words, over the past year. What is he talking about? Has he not read the Auditor General's report that found that 400 million taxpayer dollars improperly went out the door? That 330 million taxpayer dollars were funneled from the Green Slush Fund into companies of board members. $330 million. Of that, $76 million went into companies of board members as they deliberated and voted at board meetings to funnel money into their own companies or companies that they have interest in. Those were the findings of the Auditor General. On top of that, there were 186 conflicts of interest, and he says it's political games, it's politics. I'll tell you what it is. It's liberal corruption. And he should be embarrassed to be part of a government that over the past 9 years has resulted in a culture of corruption that starts at the top, starts with the Prime Minister, that has made its way through all aspects of this government, including this billion-dollar green slush fund, which one department official characterized as sponsorship-level corruption. And we have now a report from the Ethics Commissioner that found that the former chair, who was handpicked by none other than former Industry Minister Navdeep Bains, the Prime Minister's best pal.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Badaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Relevance?
I'll yield the floor back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to get into right now why it's important that we have these hearings. We have a report from the Ethics Commissioner, a damning report that found that the Liberal-appointed former chair of the Green Slush Fund broke the law, violated ethics laws by contravening on multiple occasions the Conflict of Interest Act. More specifically, the report of the Ethics Commissioner found that the chair broke the law when she moved 2 motions at Green Slush Fund board meetings that resulted in one of her companies, NR Store, to receive nearly $220,000 in taxpayer money. That is a case of straight-up self-dealing, straight-up conflicts of interest, straight-up corruption, and now she has been found guilty. And so, given the report, it's important that we get to it, to hear from the Ethics Commissioner and to hear from Ms. Verscheren. There is no reason why this should not happen for almost 2 months. With respect to the Ethics Commissioner's report, I think it's also important to note that it is narrow in scope and that it needs to be read alongside the damning Auditor General's report, which was released in June. And with respect to Ms. Verscheren and the need for her to appear at least for 2 hours, and why I think there is a need to hear from her sooner rather than later, and certainly not when we go back in 2 months, is the fact that the Ethics Commissioner specifically looked at only 2 instances where she had in what he determined was conduct that amounted to a conflict of interest when she moved those 2 motions that resulted in $220,000 being funneled to NR But when one reads the Auditor General's report, the Auditor General identified 20 additional conflicts involving Ms. Verscheren where she participated in and voted in favor of motions that resulted in monies being funneled from the Green Slush Fund to companies that she has an interest in. Those additional 20 conflicts involve a further $2,560,000, nearly $2.6 million that went to companies that she has an interest in addition to the $217,000 that the Ethics Auditor General identified and that the Ethics Commissioner looked into, in which he found Ms. Verscheren guilty of violating the Conflict of Interest Act. And so it seems to me that based upon the Auditor General's report, that there may in fact be much more work for the Ethics Commissioner to do to investigate whether Ms. Verscheren contravened the Conflict of Interest Act multiple other times in 20 cases identified by the Auditor General of conflict. And so it underscores why we need to hear from Ms. Verscheren sooner rather than later. She needs to come before a committee and she needs to address these 20 additional conflicts, and then based upon her testimony, additional steps can be taken, including referring the matter to the Ethics Commissioner to undertake a further investigation. So I have more to say, but I'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little bit taken aback by Mr. Massey's comments. He talked about 9 business days difference. What is he talking about? The motion that Conservatives put forward provides for hearings, 2 hearings, both involving the Ethics Commissioner and Ms. Verscheren within the next 2 weeks. So this notion that it's 9 business days difference is simply not true. He says that Conservatives have difficulty with math. It seems that he has difficulty with math, with the greatest of respect. And he talks about sad and irresponsible. I'll tell you what is sad and irresponsible, and that is the fact that the NDP take their orders from their boss,
Point of order,
named Justin
Chair.
Trudeau.
Yeah, just one.
I don't know what Mr. Cooper is talking about.
Mr.
Well,
Cooper, floor
no,
is-
very simply, we could be meeting next week. If the Conservative motion had passed,
Point
we
of
could
order.
be meeting the following week.
Point of order, Mr. Massey.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you can get clarification.
And we wanted it within 2 weeks. That's what we initially wanted, and we were prepared to provide within 4 weeks, but it certainly means that the committee could be at work. So this notion that it's 9 days is nonsense. And what is sad and irresponsible is that the NDP take their marching orders from Justin Trudeau. Here you have $400 million that improperly went out the door, including $330 million to companies in which Liberal insiders padded their pockets. And what are the NDP doing? They're doing the bidding of the Liberals. They're doing the bidding of Justin Trudeau to delay hearings, to delay the ability of this committee to do its work, to hold a lawbreaker, Ms. Verscheren, accountable to get answers about the 20 additional conflicts that the Auditor General identified that perhaps the Ethics Commissioner ought to start looking into, and to see that taxpayers get a refund, but taxpayers get their money back, as this current Minister of Industry, who professes to be so concerned about this scandal but did nothing, did absolutely nothing, as his Assistant Deputy Minister sat in on each and every meeting in which there were 186 conflicts until it hit the media. And then he said, oh, well, I'm now concerned. And then in the face of the Auditor General's report, what does he do? He starts releasing funds back to the very same corrupt Liberal insiders. It's a total and complete racket, and it's disappointing that Mr. Massey is going along with the Liberals to delay the work of this committee, which could be meeting as early as next week, to, as a starting point, hear from the Auditor General and Ms. Verschere. It's very disappointing.